Hi, good evening. This is a quick video because we had a nice inquiry about the pros and cons of screen printed electrodes specifically for amperometric sensing. Um, we put a little opinion piece together at Zimmer Peacock, and for us, screen printed electrodes have a excuse me, they have a benefit because they can be produced at quite low cost, and I think our hypervalue electrodes demonstrate that. A pack of 200 we sell them at 99 cents each, and a pack of 10 million we sell at 5 cents each. So we're definitely able to get to the 5 cents region with screen printed electrodes as long as you do the volumes high enough. So yeah, you can definitely get high quality and a low price as long as the volume is high. Now what's happening is there's a bit of disquiet sometimes, especially among research groups, that the screen printed electrodes don't have the quality. And what's going on there is because there's a perception that screen printed electrodes should be low cost. So the manufacturers are basically producing quite low volume, and the market expects low cost. You've got low cost, low volume, but then there's expectation it'll be high quality, but you can't have two lows and then a high like that. So in fact, what's happening is you can have high quality and low price, but you really have to be manufacturing in high volume. And what's actually happening is a manufacturer might make 10,000 sensors. They'll distribute them in packs of certain pack size, but in fact it's quite low volume manufacturing, and then they're selling at quite a low price, and therefore they can't actually achieve the high quality. The good thing about screen printed electrodes is that there are plenty of people who can print, and that makes it a competitive market. So in fact, on the ground, it seems really good that you could go around, ask for competitive quotes and get low pricing. Now, one of the problems is not many companies, I mean, at ZP, we do something called wafer mapping. Really, we just test a lot of electrodes and make sure that they're actually, functioning right. So we are testing. So there's companies that can manufacture. There's not so many companies that can test. And if I use another example here, we were testing some different inks, and we made a very attractive piece, but we were testing different inks, and one of the inks, in fact, when we tested it by cyclovoltammetry, we didn't get the sort of classic cyclovoltammetry that we were expecting. We actually got something that was quite distorted. So sometimes you can buy a screen printed electrode and you can just wonder what you're doing wrong. And you're not really doing anything wrong. It's just that the ink hasn't been selected correctly, or the ink hasn't cured properly. So, where you're expecting cyclovoltammetry, you're just going to get this kind of distorted voltammogram. So there's a slight issue that people are able to print, but they're not necessarily able to test. Now, the quality of screen printed electrodes can be high, but it's the same point as earlier on, really, that you can have batch to batch variation, and within batch variation. Now, screen printed electrodes are good because you can use them for impedance type sensors, or amperometric type sensors, or potentiometric type sensors. You can definitely do that. And I would say that amperometric sensors are actually more sensitive to the screen printing quality than potentiometric sensors. So let me illustrate why I say that. When you look at an amperometric sensor, you have a working electrode. So this is, it has a length and it has a width. And when you look at the response when it's under diffusion control, you have a sort of signal that falls as a function of time. And the signal, or the current, is proportional to the concentration of the molecule and its diffusion coefficient. So that's telling you about the molecule itself in the box there. And that's just time. And then everything else is a constant. So it should really just be saying that current is basically proportional to the concentration. But there's a term in here which is area of electrode. And this really, when you're doing amperometric sensing on screen printed electrodes, is this A term, or this area term, that's the thing that's probably messing you up. So if you're testing a whole bunch of sensors and they're all giving you slightly different responses, even though the concentration is the same, it's because of this area. And so it's either that the lengths and widths are not well controlled, or in fact the electrode has got different roughnesses. So a smooth electrode has obviously a lower surface area than an electrode that's particularly rough. So amperometric sensors are sensitive to this area effect. Now, if I contrast it with potentiometric sensors, potentiometric sensors are governed by the Nernst equation. So effectively, I'm measuring the potential. I have a cell constant, or sorry, a cell potential, which is meant to be a constant, a whole bunch of RT and ZF here, or that could be N as well. These are all constants, and then the log of the concentration. So I should just get a nice straight line as a function of time, and that line is proportional to the log of my concentration. And there's no area in there. So from the maths, you would say, oh, okay, therefore, even if I mess up the working electrode area a bit, I'll still get the same signal. And that's true. There's just one thing, which is this cell potential is linked to your difference between your working electrode and your reference electrode. But on your working electrode, it's really the voltage at your working electrode is a function of the surface of your electrode and the electrolyte that it's sitting in. So suddenly you've got like the surface of the electrode is in the equation. It's just buried quite deep down into the equation. So if I use one of our electrodes as an example, so one of our potentiometric type sensors would be our pH sensor. So here we go, and I'll just zoom in slightly. So these are about 5 pH sensors tested at a pH of 7, a pH of 9, a pH of 4, and a pH of 7. And I just want to say, they're meant to be identical, these sensors, but they're giving fairly similar signals, and these are actually quite good. But often you actually find, that the sensitivity, the slope is really well conserved between sensors, but the offset can be quite variable. And so if I go back to my original my original equation. My original page rather. If I go back to my original page here, I'm just saying that effectively the electrode surface doesn't show up it's not very obvious in this equation, but it's probably buried down in this term here, and we can at ZP do quite good with this term, but it is a variable that can come in from your manufacturing process. So let me just summarize it and put a special emphasis on screen printed electrodes can be low cost, but you have to have high volume. And in order to have high quality, you probably have to still have high volume and put a lot of engineering effort into that. It probably helps that you're working within what's called a quality management system. At Zimmer & Peacock, for example, we apply ISO 13485 to our manufacturing. And screen printed electrodes are applicable to amperometric and potentiometric sensing. And I would say that amperometric sensors are slightly more vulnerable to the vagaries of screen printed electrode manufacturing. So all these notes are going to be up on the website. There's a couple of videos as well to go there as well. And if you have any questions on Zimmer & Peacock, just drop us a comment. Okay, thanks very much.